Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Around the Big Ten podcast. I'm Marc Givler, joined as always by Chip Minnich. Let's do this here on April 14th, 2025. Right in the middle of spring. There's been a little bit of a lull in activity, like teams are going through spring practices. There's some spring games happening, but that's about to change here in a couple of days. So we'll have a lot of transfer portal stuff here in the next week or so. But today we got three things we kind of want to go into. One recruiting item, and then a couple other interesting items around the Big Ten that we're going to talk about with a couple different programs. So first of all, kind of a big hit for the Big Ten on the recruiting trail. Gregory Patrick, a top 100 caliber, top 200 caliber nationally offensive tackle out of Portage, Michigan, commits to Notre Dame on Sunday over in-state programs, Michigan State, where his dad played, Penn State, an out-of-state program, but another Big Ten school. This is a big win for Notre Dame over a lot of Big Ten schools. Chip, I guess just a little bit on that, and just your surprise level that neither of the Michigan schools were able to wrangle him.
It's definitely a surprise that I'm just going to defer to the fact that it's Michigan State would be the program that, and this is not meant as a shot across the bow at Michigan. I think the fact that Gregory Patrick is from the state of Michigan, decided to go to Notre Dame is, as the way you referred to it, Mark, it's a blow for the Big Ten. But I'm more surprised in the sense that Michigan State didn't really put greater effort. Not that I'm not trying to suggest that they didn't try, but I would have figured a legacy player from the state of Michigan would be a greater, I guess, a greater focus for Jonathan Smith. I mean, the concern, if I was a Michigan State fan, the concern would be you're bringing in a coach, very good coach, but he's not from the Midwest. How is he going to be able to recruit Midwest talent? And to lose a legacy player has to be stinging very deeply if I was a fan of the Michigan State Spartans.
Yeah, it's a big pickup for Notre Dame. They've got a lot of momentum right now coming off their national championship runner-up performance this past year. Marcus Freeman's recruiting very well. And again, you're beating out Michigan State, Penn State. He has scheduled official visits with those three programs for the beginning of June through the end of June. And those look like they likely will not be happening now. He had some big national offers, Alabama being probably the biggest one, but also had Oklahoma offer from Stanford, which is always interesting. So this was a really big win for Notre Dame. And again, you've got Michigan State there as a legacy prospect. And then you've got Michigan, which has had such a great reputation for offensive linemen, especially, the last several years, not being able to close that one out. So that's a big win for Notre Dame. And we'll get into some more recruiting stuff here. I think later this week, there is some, we've talked about some recent commitments that have went the Big Ten's way. I think the last couple of days have maybe not gone the Big Ten's way. They've lost a couple of guys, a couple of kind of local players have decided to go elsewhere, but Penn State did land a quarterback in Peyton Falzoni. So that's a good pickup for them in 2026. We'll probably dive more into that here on a future episode. But yeah, just a bit of a weird start to the week there with Michigan State and Michigan missing out on a very good offensive lineman in their backyard. Moving on to on the field stuff, some very interesting developments at Minnesota this week with PJ Fleck. Well, first of all, the reports came out. Koi Perich, the phenomenal second-year safety at Minnesota, had a split jersey on and was kind of recorded and photographed in a split jersey, signifying that he was playing eligible to play both offense and defense at Minnesota. PJ Fleck talked about that a little bit on the Big Ten Network. First of all, where do you stand on the whole idea of taking your star player on defense and having risking injury, whatever you want to call it, by having, he's already was returning kicks for them. Now he's going to maybe playing some offense. Where do you, he's a phenomenal high school player, both sides of the ball, but where do you kind of stand philosophically on this?
Oh, philosophically, I think it's a tremendous idea as long as the player is all in on it. And by all accounts, obviously Koi Perich is. That I understand the concerns about the risk of injury. My belief is that Koi Perich, as talented as he is, I think his obligation and priorities are still going to be first and foremost playing in the secondary for Minnesota. I think that's his more natural position long term. And obviously, as you said, Mark, kickoff, punt returner, I think that's secondary. And I think sprinkling him in as a wide receiver, I realize he played both running back and wide receiver in high school, but my reading of this is that it's going to be more at wide receiver. I think it's tremendous. I think Koi Perich has certainly demonstrated to the coaching staff and his teammates that he can do it, that he wants to do it. And I think anything that can put Minnesota more of a national spotlight on Koi Perich, it's better for him as well as the program itself. So if it results in more wins for Minnesota this season, I think I'm all for it.
I would love to disagree with you just for the sake of debate, but I can't. And like, I can't love this enough. First of all, Koi's an incredible player. I covered him a little bit in high school. Incredible football player, amazing freshman year. Really see no universe where he's not a first round pick in 2 years. Going to be fascinating watching both him and Caleb Downs play safety in the Big Ten. I mean, probably the two best safeties in America this year. And when we talked about this in the spring preview of Minnesota, they've done a lot of things really well. PJ Fleck's done a lot of things really well with Minnesota. That's a program I probably would be buying stock in right now. They seem to play good defense, good special teams. They develop pretty well on the offensive line. They've done a really good job at running back and having really strong running games. Where we've kind of picked them apart a little bit is like, okay, can you create explosives offensively this year? Because if you can, you may have the pieces around that to have a really great year. And Koi Perich is their best athlete. So this is a guy who might be able to change games for them via kick returns and via, playing receiver or some trick plays or some tailback, whatever it's going to be. This is someone who I think will fill an area of significant need for Minnesota. Like if they had if they had Ohio State's wide receivers, I'd be like, okay, like why are we doing this? But they don't. Like they don't have this like stable of like big play weapons on offense. This gives them a legitimate game breaker at the receiver position, wherever they decide to use them. And they've already, we suspect they're going to have a very good running game this year. They have a couple of very good running backs. So this to me is brilliant. And I think again, you hit on it. I think you hit on a bigger thing here, which is Koi Perich. If he played at Alabama last year, or Ohio State, or Michigan, or Notre Dame, the hype around him going into this year would be unbelievable. And for some reason, it's not. And it's because he's at Minnesota. That's the reason. I think this will not only shine more light on Minnesota's program, which is a good thing. I think it will show to other players, maybe looking at Minnesota, recruits, transfer portal targets, whoever it may be, that, hey, they're going to do whatever it takes to not only shine a spotlight on Minnesota, but to put their players in positions to get the football, positions to be recognized. And I think this is a great thing from like a PR standpoint for a program that maybe doesn't get that little boost that some of the blue bloods get nationally whenever they have a decent player that, they blow up, anytime Ohio State or Michigan have a decent player, well, they just go nuts nationally. And so Minnesota doesn't get that same benefit. And so I think this will be big for that. I really do. I think that's another big thing here. So that was kind of philosophically is one thing. Now, do you think, because now the Travis Hunter stuff's going to start, can he be Travis Hunter? Mm-hmm. Where do you fall on that in terms of his effectiveness doing this?
I think he's going to be tremendous. And his effectiveness, like I said a few moments ago, I think that his best position long-term is in the secondary. And I think, and this is not meant, maybe you have a disagreement, but I think Travis Hunter is at least at the NFL level, it sounds like he's going to be, if he's selected by the Cleveland Browns second, which all the early indications are that the Cleveland Browns are going to be selecting him second overall, but playing him at wide receiver and then giving him occasional spot duty at cornerback at the next level. Getting back to Koi Perich, I think this, if anything, it kind of raises the possibility of other players around the country who are extremely talented, not necessarily being able to do it at a high level, but Koi Perich could be like the next guy that could be legitimately in that conversation. You talked about Caleb Downs. I thought the fact that Ohio State by the end of the season was starting to play Caleb Downs as a punt returner, which demonstrated itself very well against Indiana in that game against the Hoosiers. But Koi Perich, I think, as a safety, that's first and foremost. Secondary, the secondary aspect is the special teams, and then I think playing spot duty, as long as his play on the field in this Minnesota secondary doesn't suffer, I think you can sprinkle in a number of plays for him as a wide receiver, and it just provides so many opportunities for that Minnesota offense. Like you said, Mark, that they don't have any explosive talent that we have seen at the wide receiver position. I think Perich is one of these guys that I think would open up opportunities for other players on that Minnesota offense if you give him an opportunity to play there.
Yeah, I don't think he'll play as much offense as Travis Hunter did. So I think in that sense, we're not going to see the same type of numbers. But I think when he does play offense, I think he'll be extremely effective. I think he will have the opportunity to change games, in a way similar, going back to like the way Chris Gamble would change games for Ohio State, where it's not like he's going to be out there every snap the way Travis Hunter was, but when he is out there, you better be careful. And so I love this idea. I think it's going to work. I think it's going to be effective. I hope they do utilize it. I hope this isn't just preseason hype and smoke and mirrors and everything else. I hope we see it early in the season. We see him out there making some plays, getting some opportunities. Again, I think he's one of the best players in college football. And again, I think if he played at a higher profile program, that we would be hearing a lot more about him going into the year. So, of course, the other end of that coin is going to be in a world where everyone's trying to hide people. You're now going to put Koi Perich in the spotlight even more. Wait till the rumors come out after, because he's only going to be a sophomore. He's not going to be able to go to the NFL after this year. Wait till like the school X is offering Koi Perich $5 million to transfer for his junior year. Wait for that. But this is a kid who turned down several big time programs in high school to stay at home with Minnesota. So I think his loyalty to the program is pretty high, but that'll be a funny part of this. Once the national media really starts getting a hold of this, that'll be a narrative that I'm sure is developed somewhere. But yeah, I love it. Great player, great idea. I think helps everyone involved. I think it helps the program. Certainly helps on the field. I think it helps off the field with media attention, spotlight. It certainly will help Koi Perich. Elevate his profile, but it's gonna be fascinating. Are we heading toward a universe where two Big Ten safeties are in like a Heisman discussion? Because I don't know how much offense Caleb Downs is going to play, but I would venture to guess he's going to play a significant amount in terms of special teams, especially in big high profile games. Like, it wouldn't shock me maybe he's not back there, against Grambling. But I would guess Caleb Downs, when they open up against Texas, is going to be back there returning some kicks.
I certainly think it is entirely possible that Caleb Downs is going to be in the Heisman conversation. He is, and I know that he's on the same team as Jeremiah Smith. He is the best player in the country, regardless of position. And the reality is that I think back to last year when Chip Kelly, as the offensive coordinator, was openly stating like he would love to see Caleb Downs getting some opportunities at running back. Now, Ohio State has an abundance of talent at the running back position, and I realize that Caleb Downs certainly could be in the mix there, but to the point that I think, utilizing him at safety and on special teams is certainly warranted enough for him to be in Heisman Trophy consideration. Given the spotlight games, like you said, like against Texas, I certainly see big play opportunities against the Longhorns for Caleb Downs, and that would vault him into Heisman Trophy consideration.
Yeah, like if he houses a punt against Texas and they win that game and it's a close game, like that type of moment can just propel people. And like if Koi Perich like has a big play and like a big game for Minnesota early in the season, the hype will start building there. So this will be interesting to kind of watch like how early this happens, how much of an impact they can make early in the season. But like I said, it's fun to talk about this stuff. It's fun to see this stuff. I'm glad coaches like PJ Fleck are thinking out of the box. We've got such like this hive type of mindset in college football where everyone's got to like do things the same way. I like the different personalities. I like the different ideas. I like teams that try different things. So I'm looking forward to this. Last thing we'll go on today. We've talked about this before. I won't bemoan like the thing that I think Big Ten schools are kind of cutting off their nose to spite their face with how they're handling spring games. But essentially we went through a big weekend this past weekend, and it was really only Ohio State's spring game that was getting headlines because other teams either didn't have it, didn't want it televised, et cetera, et cetera. So Ohio State very much took center stage. I believe the only school that had a nationally broadcast spring game over the weekend. So they were able to take center stage. I think there's some advantages to that, but we'll table that discussion for a minute. Just what were your observations? Because there are a lot of people out there who are like, well, new quarterback, like brand new defensive line. They got to replace some good offensive linemen. They got to replace Emeka Egbuka. Probably the defense will probably be good, but will the defensive line be as disruptive? And will the offense be as good with a young quarterback? Like, what have you seen, particularly in that game? I guess what were some of your takeaways, good, bad, whatever, from Ohio State spring game? Looking at it from the lens of can this team compete for a championship? Can they have a competitive repeat, journey next year, or is this a team that's gonna kind of be in retool mode next year?
Oh, this certainly is going to be a team that is going to be within the college football playoff discussion. I think it would be too premature, and this is as sitting here as completely biased for Ohio State. I realize that, like you said, I mean, the spotlight was exclusively on Ohio State simply because, as you referred to it, the Big Ten, all the other programs, with the exception of, I believe, like Maryland and Rutgers, but not for a couple of weeks, have decided to be very, very restrictive in terms of what people are allowed to see and what they're going to televise and things like that. So what I saw as, sitting there with my daughter and my son and one of his friends, as a fan, I saw a lot of young talent. I can understand why Ryan Day, I realized he was joking when he said he was going to petition the NCAA for additional weeks, but I could see why he wanted additional practice time, because there's a lot of talent on that team that just needs more repetition, more practice. The more opportunity, the better they will be when the games are for real. So when I look at the talent, the offensive line, yes, they're having to replace people, but I saw a lot of depth. I saw that the offensive line seemed to do extremely well. Now, granted, the deficiency that I would see on Ohio State would be on the defensive line. And Ryan Day himself even said afterwards, if there are players within the transfer portal who can come in and contribute and help on that front, that Ohio State might be interested. But I think that has to come with an asterisk. You don't want to just bring in a guy just for the sake of bringing him in. They have to be able to contribute. And I think that's where, if I was as an Ohio State fan, you have to kind of take a moment and realize, all right, yes, there are players within the defensive line on the transfer portal, but are they able to come in and be a solid contributor as a backup? Because I think the starting defensive line is pretty well established. I think it's the backup. So getting back to other areas that I really like, the running back position, the fact that James Peoples only had a few carries and Ohio State coaches had seen enough in the other practices that we as fans or the media were not able to see. I think that they are very confident in James Peoples as a starting tailback. I think they have really good things about CJ Donaldson that they have seen and we saw in the spring game. And I was tremendously impressed by Bo Jackson. I thought that his effort, his ability, I certainly believe that Sam Williams-Dixon as well. It was nice to see him back as an Ohio State Buckeye. So if I had to venture a guess as to how I foresee the Ohio State offense in the early portion of the offense, and maybe I'm of the season possibly being constructed, is that, as you said, Mark, inexperienced quarterbacks, regardless of who the starter is, I think you're going to rely on that offensive line and that running game. I'm not suggesting that the quarterbacks can't throw it, because I realize there's a wealth of talent there, but I think the running game will help to kind of get the quarterbacks feel comfortable, get their feet wet, so to speak. And let's face it, the addition of Max Clare at tight end is just another wrinkle to that passing attack, because, all right, now you've got that. This is not to disparage the tight ends from the national championship season, but Max Clare is another option for that Ohio State offense. So I think Ohio State is certainly going to be well deserving of being in the college football playoff discussion at the beginning of the season, and we'll see if they can repeat as national champions. But I always say I always just kind of shake my head when it comes to the preseason rankings, because we truly don't know until I mean, regardless of where we're talking about Ohio State or any other team, until those teams get out on the field and you actually see them play. And I'm willing to say, like, what, 3-4 weeks worth of play to kind of get a feel for how things are. Rankings are so premature, and the most glaring example I can give you is last year with Florida State. I mean, the fact that they were highly ranked in the preseason and had a just dismal season. So I think Ohio State's going to be fine. I just think that if I had to sit here and guess, if they can find a contributor on the defensive line within the transfer portal, they'll do it. And if I had to guess offensively, I would suggest that they might be leaning on that running game, because they have so much talent and the offensive line seem to acquit itself well, that might be the best thing that they can do to help get their quarterbacks feeling comfortable as the season begins.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to ease into things.
No, they're not.
Texas lost a lot to the NFL as well, but they have a lot of star power coming back. You would certainly expect them to have the edge in the quarterback matchup for a game that's being played at the end of August. Arch Manning has significantly more meaningful experience than either of the two Ohio State quarterbacks, Lincoln Kienholz or Julian Sayin. And I still expect Sayin will be the early starter. But so they're going to have to be ready to go right out of the gates. And beyond that, the Big Ten this year is going to be a bear. Oregon's going to be really good again. Penn State's going to be really good again. I would expect Michigan to be better. They're going to be better at quarterback. They didn't really have Will Johnson last year defensively. So, I don't think the defensive losses are quite as substantial as people think when you kind of put it in that context. I think the D-line will be interesting, but they had a great depth there last year too. So I think there's going to be a lot of, Illinois is going to be really good, and they're going to have to go there. So I think there's a lot of hurdles for them. But you're right, the talent is there, and it's just a matter of how that talent gels and comes together over the next few months. And I think Ryan Day was happy with things this spring, but like you said, I think he would have liked even more time. I think fall camp's going to be interesting. I'll say this too. For a team trying to repeat, I think they actually are in a good situation, because this is kind of a brand new team. Yes, Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith are back. Like I get that. But there are so many guys on this team, particularly on that defensive line and in that front seven, that haven't really had a chance to make their name yet. And so you're not going to get this group of like this happened to them in 2015. Everyone blames the offensive coordinators, and look, that was an ugly mix of offense. I'm not defending the offensive coordinators on that team. But the biggest problem that team had was that they had won it the year before with a bunch of sophomores who couldn't go to the NFL and had to come back. And a lot of those guys would have been first-round picks after their sophomore years. Certainly first, second-round picks. They had to come back by rule, and I think most of them had a foot out the door well before that season even started. They don't have that problem this year. When you lose that many starters, you have all these hungry players. I joke about this sometimes because I don't know that, and I think there's some truth to it though. Like when you win a national championship in college football, I think almost the best thing that can happen to you is to have a completely new roster the next year, is to lose like 15 starters, because then you don't have that complacency come in. You're driving competition at so many positions. There are so many guys this year who are like there's guys in their money years, like Sonny Styles is in a money year. There's guys, Carnell Tate's in a money year. Then there's young guys like Mylan Graham and Julian Sayin and Edric Houston on defense who are trying to establish themselves as the next wave of star players. And so when you get that mix together, I think there will be some growing pains without question. Like this is not a team I look at and say, oh yeah, they've got a great chance of going undefeated. Like I would be surprised if they went undefeated in the regular season. Someone's going to get them. Maybe multiple someones, who knows? But I do think the talent is there to make another playoff run. And I do think he's got the right mix of like a couple of great players in the veteran group, but a lot of hungry, talented players who aren't resting on laurels from last year because they didn't really get to establish themselves last year. So those are some of my takeaways. I think your point about the tight end position was interesting. They're going to be much more dynamic at tight end this year than they were last year. Cade Stover a couple years ago was pretty good for them, but last year it's what they didn't get a lot out of the tight end position in the passing game. I think they're getting a lot out of it this year with Claire and Jelani Thurman, who started to come on a little bit toward the end of last year. So interesting team to watch this year for sure. Talent certainly there. And yeah, those were kind of my takeaways was, again, tight end is interesting. I think they're going to have one of their better O-lines that they've had recently. Just depth and talent. And then you watch like a Mylan Graham, who I've been really high on since high school. You watch him get his opportunities and you think, yeah, that receiver room is just loaded again. But quarterback play, especially early in the season, is a concern of mine. If you're looking at the Ohio State, reasons to not be buying Ohio State right now, a little unknown at quarterback. D-line depth, yes. Here's my thing with that, and I know Day talked about that a little bit, and this is kind of my last point here. If you had I don't even know how many teams there are now in Division I. It's like 130 some now. Whatever it is, 130 some. If you had all of them in a room right now, and you said, "Raise your hand if you have enough good defensive linemen," not a single coach would raise their hand. Everybody wants more good defensive linemen. Everybody. So I get that to an extent. They have depth bodies. Like Taiwan Malone is fine. They have depth bodies. What they would like to have, I think, is one more, and they try to get a defensive end too. They did. They went and got Logan George. They were also in the Damon Wilson thing. They're looking for a couple of pass rushers right now. And if they can find them, that'd be great for them. But if not, I think what they've got is good enough. But yeah, it's one of those things where they would love to have that, but so would everybody else. And so we'll see what happens in the portal. They don't need to bring in a depth guy. They have depth guys. They need to bring in, if they're going to get somebody, it's got to be a difference maker, in my opinion.
Oh, sure. And I love the fact that you talked about the complacency or the lack thereof. I think that, the fact that the reports that have surfaced that, we talked earlier about Caleb Downs, that this team still has a lot of hunger and a lot of intensity. The idea that, all right, we need to we need to take down these banners for the 2024 national championship because we are trying to win the 2025 national championship. We haven't done anything. The players that are here now, granted, Caleb Downs was a key part of that, but a lot of them have recognized the fact that, hey, we had nothing to do with the 2024 national championship team, so we need to take those banners down. So I agree wholeheartedly with you about the complacency thing. And this is something, just to kind of throw this out there, when you talk about the 2015 team, and I realize, kind of going in the way back machine here, but another thing that I think, and I realize the spring game was just a few days ago, one of the things that I'm sure that Ryan Day and the other coaches are trying to avoid from the 2002 national championship team, any drama, any controversy. And I realize, I am 100% for the fact that, like, the Maurice Clarett transformation from what happened back then to where he is now is tremendous. The fact that he was a positive influence on this past year's team, as a sounding board for the players by all accounts. That's something else that, that any coach, you the way you reference the fact that, okay, every coach would say, all right, do you have enough defensive linemen? There would be no coaches that would raise their hand. And I realize this is going to sound like a snarky comment, but okay, how many coaches would want to have any kind of like off the field drama, like what's going on at Tennessee with, they were supposed to be finishing up their spring game and everything, just kind of everything that happened there. And I'm not here to, take shots at them. I'm just saying the larger point being that you want to get out of spring first and foremost healthy, and Ohio State did that. Okay, if they can add a contributor, and I think we're both in agreement there, like not just depth, but a contributor, like somebody who can come in and play meaningful snaps, not just take up a spot on the roster. If they can find that on the defensive line, they'll do that. And let's just avoid any kind of controversy, any kind of drama between now and the beginning of fall camp, and everything will fall into place. I think I agree with you. It'd be wonderful for Ohio State to be able to run the table, but I can't sit here and say until, especially, you start to kind of get an idea in terms of what other teams look like. The fact that Ohio State is hosting Texas right from the jump doesn't do them any favors. So you're talking about a team that is going to be naturally itching to, kind of settle the score from the college football playoff game, the national audience. So it's going to be a very difficult, challenging beginning for Ohio State. Like you said, the Big Ten schedule is tough. So I think that the ingredients are there. It's just a matter of keeping everyone focused on the goal at hand. And I really do have the utmost confidence in Ryan Day. The coaches that he has kept, the coaches that he's brought in seem to have really bought into the whole idea of the Ohio State program as a whole. So it's going to be exciting. It's just unfortunate. I'm with you. That I'm with you, that I think, these other Big Ten programs that are trying to be very reclusive and isolating with their programs, they're not doing themselves any favors. I realize that they're trying to be protective of other programs poaching their players, but I think it's for any program, I think you want your players to, be under the spotlight of the fan base, and getting an opportunity to perform, and especially the younger guys, like to see, what it's like when the fans are in the stands.
Yeah. I think some missed opportunities this spring for a lot of programs around the country who I think are taking what I think is an appropriate stance that we need some guardrails in place in college football right now, but I don't know that this is the right way to go about it. And I think Ohio State took advantage of things this weekend by having a big, like, and it's not a program that needs like a spotlight. Like, this is a program that gets enough media love. Like, they already get a disproportionate amount of media attention. And you just kind of gave them some more, I think. But
exactly.
We'll see. We'll see how things develop with that over the next year. Would certainly love the Deion Sanders model to get pushed through to allow a spring scrimmage. I think that would be tremendous for really everyone. Yeah. I think it'd be tremendous for college football, for players trying to get better, for coaches trying to get better. and for just generally for TV ratings and the pocketbooks of everyone with big spring game crowds and everything like that. So transfer portal opens Wednesday. You and I will be on top of that. We'll be doing episodes on the transfer portal probably quite a bit here over the next 2 weeks, and keeping track of everything else going on in the Big Ten. But that'll do it for today's episode. We appreciate everyone's support, appreciate everyone watching here on youtube.com/@SaturdayGlory. And you can also download us at any of your podcast platforms of choice. Just search for Around the Big Ten. All right, guys, I appreciate again everyone watching and listening, and we will talk to you again soon.